I always get upset if I don't hit record right away because then we have such good conversations. But obviously, we were talking about some stuff that is a big secret that you guys can't know. I'm just kidding.
Proprietary.
Yes, proprietary. Exactly. We should sell that now. Oh my God. Please look in the show note links for our proprietary training approach from me and Bryan. Thank you.
That's right.
We will be offering that at the Silverback Summit. So you guys can only get it there. That's it. Nowhere else. Just come.
Yep.
Bryan.
We're now going to come up with something. Okay, here we go.
All right. So how many ADD people does it take to make a podcast? You guys are in for a fun story. We might do like 14 different tangents. We might do 40. We have no idea.
I'll get the whiteboard. Yeah, that's right.
But Bryan Krahn is an amazing and very credentialed fitness professional and physique coach. And he's going to be speaking at the Silverback Summit alongside myself. And as you guys can see, if you're watching, he is quite jacked.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Look at those delts, man. I got to know.
What? It's the lighting. I lit the place perfectly.
I got to get that down lighting for the podcasts. Like
delt lighting.
Does that come at the Meathead store? Like, where do I get it?
Yeah, it's just 1-800 Meathead, and get the delt lighting package. And it's great.
I feel small. I should have worn a tank top. Damn.
Well, it's warm here for 1 month out of the year, so I take advantage of it.
That's right. You're out in Canada.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Probably snowed last week, right?
It's so fun. I mean, for those listening, I'm in Calgary. I'm right near Banff, and there's so much snow this year that even though it's 80 degrees today, you can go skiing. And so there's pictures of like all these girls in bikinis, and they're like skiing, and actually looks like a lot of fun. Actually, I shouldn't make fun of it, but
you should go.
I can't fucking ski.
You don't. How do you live in Canada and you don't ski?
I skate.
Or snowboard. You skate.
No, I skate. I'm from the prairies, so where it's flat, so I skate. Here it's all mountains and girls on skiing, so I don't do that. So I'll go skate by there, but yeah.
I mean, to watch alone, I'm sure is rather entertaining.
Well, if ever I was going to go skiing or snowboarding, it would be on a day like today when it's so hot and so scenic. So
yeah. I mean, I don't know if guys were in bikinis, you'd be out there watching that, but hey, to each their own, right?
That's right.
I mean, hey, nowadays you never know. I don't know. Can I even say that? Who knows?
Yes.
Beside the point, but let's talk some fat loss and physique stuff and whatnot. So for those who don't know, who do you primarily coach?
90%, probably 99% just ordinary folks. Some people are really kind of committed, in that, lifelong exercise, and like in that 25 to 50-year-old range. That's my wheelhouse. Mm-hmm. Probably 35 to 50, I should say. Primarily just normal folks. Some people have been training a long time though, because you can be pushing 50 and got 30 years of training under you. And some people just raw beginners, and obviously those are very different applications, but no like fitness competitors. Well, mm-hmm. I shouldn't say that. I always have one. You always get one, and frankly, that's enough. But yeah, then it's mainly just Gen Pop, and I try to take what I know from the more kind of, I don't want to say professional, but like kind of the higher end physique world. Take what I've learned there, and that can apply to Gen Pop, and put it to use.
Have you competed?
No, I have not. I've not. My joke is I'm gonna keep training and see how long I live. So eventually everyone else is gonna fucking die off.
Yeah,
that's when I step on stage. So that's
have you ever thought about it or like gotten that itch?
I've thought about it, but everyone I talk to says, you are the worst possible, because I'm just over 5'10". So I would just be destroyed. And I know it's not all about winning, but frankly, it kind of is all about winning. And, but no. The other thing is I always, that I just don't get excited by that. I love bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And I love the process, and I love the changes and everything. And just the way it makes you feel. But just that last, I even love peaking. I love like the science behind it, even though that's not really my thing. Like it's just the actual competition. That's where I kind of step out. I just don't enjoy that. I can't see myself, getting a buzz from that. And, then, complaining about where I placed. Oh, I should have been sixth, not eighth, like that kind of thing. And I mean, there's nothing against it. I think it's great, but it's just not my thing.
Yeah. I think there's like, obviously with the onset of social media being so popular, so many people want to do a show because they have a friend who did a show.
Yeah.
And my stance is like what you said. Do you want to win this show? If you just want to get cool photos, do a fucking photo shoot. Like, then you can be flexible with the date.
I know. That's so funny. I say the exact same thing. I'm like just, then then there's not this pressure. I mean, I know pressure makes people do amazing things. I get it. But at least there's a little bit of, you have a bit of kind of a mental release that, if, you don't like how you look on that day, I'll book another photo shoot, or I'll delay it, or do all these things. And then you're you can have fun with it because it's just you against yourself. And, it's just a different, it's a different feel. And, because I know competition brings out the best in us and all that, but it's still competitive. Like if you have this goal for yourself, especially if you've done it before and you looked at yourself and go, okay, I looked okay here, but I know I can do better. Now that's a competition, and that gets all those things firing. You don't have to be like, oh, I got to destroy this guy, because he was talking shit about me on Instagram, and, I got to come in there.
Dude, like we compare ourselves enough to other people. We don't need it like right here.
I always kind of get a kick too, especially the younger guys. I admit I'm old, so I've seen all this shit before. They all use this line like, oh man, I'm bringing a special package this year to the show. I'm bringing something special. And I'm like, bro, you're not bringing anything special. Trust me, you're not. Like, there's like 3 people on the planet who can legit say, I'm bringing something special. It's like, yeah, you're Big Rami. You're fucking special. But everyone else, you're not. Just, so just, anyway, that's fine.
I commend those who do it, but honestly, the lighting on a photo shoot way more forgiving than the stage.
Oh, yeah. Well, and frankly, that's what most, especially women, they do it for that. Like they do it so they can look good and get great photos and put them on social media. They don't do it so they can, try to out-angle the girl next to them. But again, to each their own. To each their own. So.
It's your own show. Yeah. Like I did my first one in March, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna never fucking do video and photo on the same day. Holy shit. And I forgot all my food because ADD. So I only brought my vodka and my Sour Patch Kids, and that's all I had all day. Because Luke was like, drink the vodka right before you start shooting, and I was like, that's going to be when I'm driving. And he's like, just do whatever you need to do. Cause I can't drink it the night before. It just fucks my sleep up. And I was like, here I am in a gym, drinking vodka, eating Sour Patch Kids. Okay.
Well, okay. Some people that's a weekend meal. So I mean, you're not, that's all right. But
this is true. But I'm glad we have the same stance. And so have you ever done a photo shoot that is like a get ripped photo shoot versus like the lifestyle photo shoot?
Yes, I have. Yeah, I have. I should find those. I've done photo shoots where I'm never as ripped as I could be, or dare I say should be. But I've done that, and I think I'm going to do it this year or this coming year. So I'm turning 50, so I'm always like, all right, that's that'll be motivation for me. I mean,
when's your birthday?
But it's just next June. I just turned 49.
Wow, dude, I thought you were like my age. I'm 40.
No, well, I've been 40. I was there. That was fine.
Are you going to peak for the summit in October? That's my real question.
Probably not. Probably not.
Come on.
God, I don't. Yeah, I'll definitely. Well, after my string of injuries this year, I just want to stay upright, quite frankly. But no, I'll be this. I want to commit to it this year. Actually, I've been thinking about that. That I've always looked at training in kind of too short of a window, like 3 months and 3 months. But with this year, I'm like, you know what? I want to set a goal for next June. And this was I was thinking about this like this past June, so I'm like a year away. I want to start maybe looking. Maybe that's kind of counterintuitive because I'm getting older and I'm looking longer term. It's probably not a good idea. I should be looking at things. All right, I want to live 2 more weeks, but no.
You can't say that because then we're trying to get clients to stay with us and look at things long term, and then you can't be like, yeah, don't do that.
I know. I think it's probably the biggest change because now that I have a kid. And, he's going into school and I'm like, okay, now I got like this much time until it's like Christmas break. And then I have this much time until summer holidays. So I'm like, now I'm kind of looking at things. All right, I'll change my training that way.
So talk us through like, so if Bryan's shoot date is next June, what does that look like? So people could also get an idea of like, how would you map out your training and diet phases for the next year?
Actually, it's exactly what you said. You got to work backwards. You have your peak date, and then you have to give yourself like a nice window around that. So rather than saying, all right, June 30th, say, all right, late June. So that way you have a nice kind of buffer that you can change according to how things are going up to then. And then, I'm not a big believer, especially as people get older and having these bulks and cuts, unless they really need that. I'm more of a fan of just kind of nudging in one direction. So let's say if someone needs to gain a little bit of size, you kind of nudge calories up rather than like this whiplash, okay, we're going to aggressively bulk for, 3-4 months. Maybe you just slowly bring up calories, all in accordance to like how the body is responding. So, and then that way that you kind of reach a certain level of conditioning where you start to get a little bit too heavy and then you hold it for a while. That's the other thing. You don't want to do these big kind of, jumps back and forth. You got to have these holding phases in between and then, then kind of nudge things down the other direction to lose body fat. So I don't know if that really makes sense without a whiteboard. But I think, basically, I like to keep things as consistent as possible, as opposed to these whiplash phases. Like the extremes work great when you're young, or when you have to make big changes and you can afford to go through these long periods where maybe you're like uncomfortably heavy, or enforced feeding. Like who wants to be in their 40s and 50s to like overeating in the car before a meeting or something? So it's much more of a line of taking a longer period and just kind of nudging calories towards where you want to be and evaluating your condition. And, but the biggest thing though, and I should have started with this, is that the biggest thing is you have to have it aligning, not just with like what your body is telling you, but what your life is telling you. Like I mentioned, having a school year, like if you're having a phase where, okay, the next few months, my kid's going to be going to school. I'm going to be working my job. We're not doing any traveling. That's when you really focus on, I want to make some changes in my physique. I want to really eat more. I want to train an extra session, do more volume for this body part, whatever. And then when, life changes, let's say it's spring break or something, or you're going away, that's part of what you would pull back and just kind of like hold things. And I think too often we take our goals or we force it into our life, and it just doesn't work. Or else, it works when you're young and you don't have much going on.
Yeah.
But when you're a little bit older, it creates so much friction. So the more you can kind of like weave things into your lifestyle, the better.
I think a lot of like, especially for new dads too, like they freak out and stress out about maintaining their same schedule when the baby comes. And a lot of them try to maintain like the same cadence of lifting and everything. And then I'm just like, no, that's not realistic.
Oh, that's funny. You brought that up. I just had that question from a guy. He's like, he's a late father, kind of like me. And he had his kid a couple months ago, and now he's like, I don't know. He's like, I don't know what to do. He's like everything, all my plans have been shot to hell. That's the one thing kids teach you, is that they don't give a shit about your plans. They're just, but so now he's reaching out and he's like, okay, can you help me come up with a plan to deal with the stage? And I just said, I go, well, that's the problem right there, is that you can't have a plan. Like, you can't have that kind of an approach. You have to have more of a mindset. Like rather than, okay, I'll do only 3 workouts a week, and I'm gonna do them on these days, and you can't really do that. You have to just have basic targets that you try to hit every week, and you hit them when you can. So you got a day when, holy shit, I have childcare, and I can actually, then I'll hit this longer workout, and and then if okay, well, I'm lucky if I could squeak 45 minutes, in the next, 3 days, then I'll hit this shorter workout, and just, it's much more of just like I don't want to say instinctive, that's the wrong word, but we're maybe perhaps reactive, and just like responding to the time that you have, rather than rather than try to come up with something that predicts what your life is going to be like. So I found it's a bit of a non-answer, but it's saying these are the targets that you got to get hit in the week, and just hit them when you can. And if you consistently can't hit them, then we'll bring it back down, because you can only have so much rhythm in your life and so much structure when you're dealing with a little kid.
That's like the epitome of one-on-one coaching. I mean, I think if you're a younger coach, it's hard to appreciate what either a new dad or somebody who is so busy and stressed with work is actually going through. And to be like, well, you're having a baby this week, we're supposed to, 3RM test. Like,
yeah, I know. I know. I know. And honestly, I made that exact mistake myself. I had plans for after my son was born. I had plans. Then everything happened. I'm like, holy shit, boy, do I look like an idiot right now.
But that's why I love your approach. And that's why I wanted you to come to the event, because you're like a realist and you give very applicable, simple ideas. Like, I think people complicate shit so much because they see other fitness professionals arguing about things that make no sense and no one cares about. It's semantics of training. And it's just like, really, if somebody can deadlift, let them do a trap bar versus a barbell. Let them do whatever they want. Like, who cares?
I know. I know. It's funny. I can't remember the last time I argued about something like that. But I know I have. And I'm embarrassed just to think about it.
Dude, me too. I was telling someone, I'm like, oh my God, I used to do that because we wanted to be somebody in the industry. And it's like, well, if I show I know more than so-and-so, and everyone's going to come running and follow me. And it's so not like that.
I know. And to be honest, I still find myself kind of doing it, but fortunately, I kind of check myself like, okay, is this going to, because you can have those fun discussions to have when everyone's on the same page, that it doesn't really, no one really cares, then it's like, then it's just talking shop. But, oh God, the last thing I want to do is debate something that, that just doesn't move the needle at all.
Well, that, and too, everyone gets offended by everything these days. So
fuck yeah, I know.
Healthy debate. I don't even know if there is healthy debate anymore. Like, is that allowed?
Yeah, I know. People, a few people have reached out to me. They're like, "Hey, man, or where'd you go?" And I'm like, "I'm still here, dude. I'm busy as ever." And they're like, "Well, I don't see you on social media much." And I'm like, "Well, I'm just taking a break." Like,
Well, I love when you post something highly, highly sarcastic and people take it seriously.
Oh God, I know. Oh, I know. Oh, yeah. Or those times I'm unfollowing. like, oh wow, I feel terrible, man.
Jeez, my life's ruined. Wow.
I know.
day awful. Damn.
Yeah. Yeah.
But circling back to like with the new dads and stuff, the concept of like the dad bod and that whole
Mhm.
movement or whatever, I think obviously looking at you, people want to look like you. And what I found with coaching, like the concept and the definition of what a dad bod is some guys maybe don't want a 6-pack, but they want like a 2-pack. But there's also a lot of guys who feel like it's an excuse to let themselves go. And
Yeah.
it's almost like that's their identity for the rest of their life.
Yeah. That I've always like, I do have a lot of sympathy for legit sympathy and empathy for someone who's like, they had this disruption of this new little person in their life. And, they're, especially if they're used to be really regimented and all of a sudden all that is torpedoed. And, God forbid maybe their kid is, really high needs, and they look down and they've kind of seen their body evaporate. And I have a lot of sympathy for that. And it's, and even if your kid is 100% healthy and everything's great and everything is positive, you'll even have time making, like you'll have trouble making the time.
Absolutely.
You'll have that guilt and again, and I think all that's legit. And I don't think there's anything wrong with getting a little soft. Like nobody, who cares? But
no, it's inevitable. It's when it carries on for years on end.
Well, exactly. It's using that as using it as an excuse. Oh man, my kid came around and everything got shot to hell. I mean, yeah, it probably will, but that's not forever, God forbid. And you could probably, you can always mitigate that. It doesn't have to be a complete disaster. But that whole thing, though, that whole dad bod thing, it's always the extremes of it that I find really disappointing. And it's the one extreme is like, guys pretending that they're cool with that. Like, oh yeah, man, like, look at me, look at my dad bod. And obviously it's just in ways of kind of like managing an insecurity, like making fun of themselves. So I don't, obviously I'm not big on it. And the other thing I don't like is this whole trend of, you get somebody who's a really fit dad and they'll be like, look at me, I'm 50 and I look like this. What's your excuse? Like, that is my biggest, if I hate anything, I hate that, because it's just like, whoa, what's their excuse? Well, did you ask them? Because you might be really fucking disturbed at what you hear. You might be, well, what's my excuse? Well, well, my kid had this wrong with them, or in COVID, I lost my job, and or this happened to me. And all of a sudden you'll sit there and go, oh, wow, okay, you do have some good excuses. So maybe I should just shut up and put my shirt back on.
Yeah. And it's like the extent of what that person took to look that way. Okay. First of all, peeling the layers off, we all know the truth.
Exactly. Like that's the other thing. Like, fuck, pardon my language. I mean, like,
no, yeah, please, let them rip.
You're jacked for 20 years. You have a kid. Oh, wow. Your life's turned upside down. You gained 20 pounds. You dieted off in 8 weeks and you're back to your old self. And now you're like, oh, look at me. What's, like, come on, man. You had that foundation. It's so much different than like your average person who's not as into all this, and they slowly gain weight and they find themselves on the wrong end of the scale kind of thing. Like, that's a totally different context. I mean, So to kind of weaponize the fact that you've had this background, probably a very superficial background, myself included, to kind of like weaponize that should be the norm. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
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 Go ahead.
Yeah. I was just saying that's what when my colleagues do that, I try not to shit on what my colleagues do, but when they do that, if I know them, I'll reach out to them like on the download. Don't do that, man. Like, come on.
I think too, I mean, it's important to be truthful and transparent, like if somebody comments on something like one of my photos and I'm like, listen, I didn't like do anything social for like 3 months. And like, I tell them what's involved. Cause like there's a lot of, people on social media, let me post all my cheat meals, but I'm not going to post like the tilapia and asparagus that I eat the rest of the day to show you how life really sucks. Like, and I don't eat that now, but like when they play that up, like, oh, well, if you build all this muscle, you too can diet on 3,000 calories and 600 grams of carbs. And it's just like so annoying that, and then it's just more stuff that we have to combat when somebody comes to us and they're like, I want to look like this because they do this.
Well, yeah. And another thing someone asked me is like, you never talk about what you eat, and I'm like, well, because it's not really relevant. I mean, I get it. There is, you might say, oh, this person eats this recipe or eats this, but everyone is in such a different context. And everyone have different metabolisms and there's different backgrounds. And that's the other thing. If you're not going to show your whole diet and just show the cheat meals, that one meal you have a month or maybe a week, like that's just so disingenuous. And some people will get it and they'll see right through it. They'll go, oh yeah, that's their cheat meal. But other people, they don't. And so I just think people can do what they want, of course, and to each their own. But there's so much context in all of this that it's like you put a little bit of info out, you kind of almost have to put out all the info. Whether it's diet or drugs or everything.
Yes. You're going to be judged no matter what. Yeah. That's just what social media is. So like my biggest thing is the other side of being older. Like people are, not to blow my own horn, but people are like, oh wow, look at him, he's almost 50. And in my head, and I'll say this too, like, yeah, that's fucking almost 40 years of doing this. Like, good Lord. Like I'm a complete failure when you think about 40 years and this is it. Like, holy fuck. If it was like 4 months, yeah, I'd be like, holy shit, look at that. It's impressive. 4 months, not four decades. So, I mean, that's my other thing is when someone's like, I look like this and I'm 45. And meanwhile, yeah, and you're played college football when you're 18 and you're the same size, maybe not as lean. And for the past 30 years, you've refined that great physique and have these great habits, and God bless you. But like, let's be real here. Like, you didn't start working on that project on your 45th birthday. Like, how old were you when you first picked up a weight?
Oh, fuck. Probably 13, but I started working out like, seriously, poorly, but seriously. Big difference.
We all did, yes.
Seriously, poorly. Probably when I was 16.
Still, that's a lot earlier than, like, think of kids these days too. Like the whole coming from that weight room era where it was reading magazines because there was no social media and that was really all we had. And then you actually learned how to lift because like your dad did it, or that was what you just did for fun. It's not the same.
Yeah. Like I was from that. God, I lived in everything in the magazines. I would just absorb. And then of course, not knowing at the time that, that they're all ghostwritten, and, then I'd get conflicting information, which we have a lot of now. And that would just make me be like, well, what the fuck? I mean, well, this guy does, 4 sets of 10 and this person's doing like 1 set. Like, how is that even possible? And just like that would drive me, I wouldn't say drive me nuts, but it would give me analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
And that's probably the single biggest impediment in my training success is too much overanalyzing and just not enough. The handful of basics, just hitting them hard. Like if I would have just done that, just focus on eating and not, micromanaging my diet way too soon, and not, gimmicky training, and just, basic exercises, trying to get a little bit stronger, try to get a little stronger. Not so much going by the mirror at first, but going by trying to get a little bit stronger, try to get a little bit stronger, and then looking at the mirror a bit. I mean, I'm the poster boy for lack of mentorship at an appropriate time.
So. No, but I think we all went through like that. Damn, if I only knew then what I know now. I would look completely different. Cause like I think I started like lifting when I was 15. And then I'm like, shit, if I actually did it seriously, like you're saying, since 15, I would look a lot fucking different. Like it's mind boggling that we go back and think of that. And I was laughing this morning because I guess I saved a message of Luke's from 2 years ago where I probably was complaining about like my muscles or something. And he said, well, we can't bulk because you freak out at the scale number going up, which is inherently muscle building. So that's our problem. And I'm like, wow. And like, here we are 2 years later. I'm like, come on, scale, go up. Like, just you reframe everything. And I find that a lot of that actually occurs nowadays with guys who want to look a certain way, but they don't have necessarily the background that we had. They come from when the explosion of like the circuit and the HIIT stuff came, that those basic strength training exercises that you're alluding to, they don't really have exposure to. Do you find that too?
Well, yeah, they don't have, they don't have that seasonal approach to bodybuilding that I certainly was exposed to. I don't want to say I didn't practice it, unfortunately, but I certainly knew about it, and it's not talked about today at all. And it's just that having that period, okay, like for us, it was always like from September till March, especially because I'm in Canada.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just, you got to get big now and, get and not be dieting and not be like always looking in the mirror. But I mean, yeah, we're always looking in the mirror, but not in the same way that I see guys look in the mirror today. Like now it's like, always like checking their abs, and it's always trying to look all blue steel and shit. And like I'm from that area, it's just like you guys didn't care their face, be like, no one cares. Just, and even ab shots, it's always like show your arms and stuff like that, and your back and your legs.
Vacuum.
Well, there was Frank Zane in the vacuum, but it just wasn't this thing about always. I mean, I was thinking about this. Who's that the actor Marky Mark? Yeah. Once he started dancing around in his underwear, all of a sudden guys started, okay, well now I got to trim up. But if there was just like this much more of a focus, especially on Instagram today, if people were like, all right, we're gonna keep our clothes on and we're gonna focus on getting bigger and stronger and in the basic lifts, and maybe we'll do the odd pose down for the gram, but not this daily like the daily selfie is the dumbest fucking thing in the history. Like if I wanted to limit your progress, take a daily selfie. like that's just like if I wanted to ruin someone's training, like here, just take a daily selfie. You'll never get anywhere. So it's just got to have these longer periods where you're actually doing work. And then towards the end when you're lean and like you and your photo shoot, then you can do it. Yeah, then you can do a daily selfie, until you want to get somewhere else.
Yeah, totally. So my next question, so what is the conversation that you have with a guy who does not have this background that we're talking about, who wants to get in his mind shredded, maybe not dick skin, but pretty damn shredded. But he needs to build muscle because he will obviously, like the guy who says, well, now I'm too small when he gets lean.
Yeah. Well, first of all, no one's ever happy. So there's that. Yeah. Even Arnold says he wished he had bigger triceps. So there's that.
We're all fucked.
We're all fucked. So when I saw that, I'm like, all right, I'm done. I mean, the biggest thing where I think, at least again, my clientele is typically they're still trying to get all the ducks in a row. They're not really at that point where, all right, I want to perfect the perfection kind of thing. But everything stems from your structure and your systems. Like, so when I'm working with someone, if they're like, okay, I want to, I'm not happy with my progress. What should I tweak on my diet? I was like, well, we have to look at your consistency. You haven't been consistent enough yet, and it's kind of, it's a difficult conversation at times because it's like I'm always putting the blame back on them, and that's not the intention. But it's just like until you're in a good groove and consistent and hitting all the targets for our current goal, then you can't really say whether what we're doing is successful. You know what I mean? If I give you a diet and you follow it 4 days a week, the other 3 days you're just kind of like, whatever. You can't say that this diet was shit, or it didn't work because we haven't hit the targets yet. Now, if you're unable to hit the targets for whatever reason, that's a bit different. Okay. And it's the same with training. Like, you can't say, oh, that back program you put together for me didn't do anything. Did you hit it at 90%? Did you, hit all these targets that we had? Then we can't really objectively evaluate it. So to get back to your question, I mean, I think everyone should just focus on hitting their basic targets just to improve their body, not necessarily get bigger, get ripped, but call it recomp if you want. Fine, call it recomp. When you start out, just hitting these basic targets and see where your body. Like, I've had people that they want to lose weight, but then they start hitting these targets consistently, training, focusing on getting another rep, but also they're getting bigger. And then they're like, wow, this wasn't what I wanted, but okay, that, like, just see what their body gives you when you put it in the best position to actually win.
Yes. Because then what they want is like a byproduct almost.
Yeah. I mean, it's easy to always like, all right, now I want to get ripped, and I'm going to, eat this calorie level and do this and do that. I'm like, okay, but do you have the systems in place to do it? Like, that's the key. Like, fuck, I can tell you to do anything, but like, do you have these? Can you get up at this time of day, do a little bit of cardio, and can you, prepare meals twice a week or 3 times a week, or can you go shopping twice a week? Whatever fits and all these things can be adapted to fit your life, but unless you got these systems in place where you can kind of, then apply the goal to them, or it's the other way around. But like, the systems have to, like, that has to come first. Like, because anybody can come up with a fucking, all right, you got to put on 20 pounds. Like, okay, great. All right, do you have like the raw machinery to eventually make that happen?
Yeah. And then they try like like, oh, I got to bulk, or, to add some muscle. And it's like the same as like slashing calories doesn't make fat loss necessarily faster. You can't force the muscle.
Well, exactly. And bulking, I just get fat. Well, because you didn't eat 300 extra calories a day on top of your diet that you had nailed down like fucking like clockwork for the past months.
Mm-hmm.
You just started eating a bunch. Like, of course you got fat, like, it's, like, that's, maybe the word bulk should be banned, because it's just, that's the problem, is that people, it's easy to have goals, and it's even easy to have plans, but if you don't have the systems and the discipline and the regimented lifestyle to put the plan into action, it's just a waste.
What are some of like the targets that you want your clients to hit, specifically like your guys, like right away?
Yeah. When I start off with someone, it's just calories and protein. And then you see I like to just see how they like to eat. And if they naturally, their food choices naturally like is red meat and whole eggs and stuff like that, then, we'll go that route and keep the carbs a bit lower. And then if they have naturally or kind of a carb palate, it's the opposite. And it's not that specific macros doesn't work. Of course it works, but you just got to give them, start them off with hitting these basic targets. And I find people just getting in enough protein is the biggest thing. And just doing that solves a lot of problems.
Huge.
And then just see how their body reacts. I mean, I think sometimes we get a little caught up in the numbers that, I just like to see how they react. Like, what is their body? Because people can have crazy different metabolisms, and you just don't know until you get in there.
I have one guy who's been on the same calories almost 4 months now because he's still progressing. Yeah. And I'm just like, there's no reason to change anything, And it's like, almost, I feel like shit. These people feel like you should be making more changes, but there's no reason to.
Yeah, no. And I mean, and his other thing is sometimes people like when I just had somebody, things are being really slow, but his last training block was really, really, really good. But now things are really, really slow. And obviously now I'm looking at go, shit, I'm failing this guy. Like, what am I doing? And then I had to take a step back and realize I'm with him on his second year of training. So I'm going, well, fuck. I mean, and like, anything you do on that first year, provided, like that's your money year. And obviously that makes me feel a little bit better, but not quite, it's people are so different. And I think, especially when people get a little bit older and stress is in the mix, like, man, that can just shut everything down. And
huge.
And then you look at these numbers you got and you look at your plan and you're like, this should fucking work. So that's, yeah.
And then there's stuff that we do that we can't necessarily say why it works. It just works.
Yeah.
And there's no, and going back to like contextual stuff, like it's almost like if somebody were to throw up on social, like what they're doing currently, then all the people that disagree are going to chime in, but they don't understand what's going on in the background. For example, like if someone says they're eating calories that seem low, then there's this movement of, oh, well, he's going to get metabolic damage and he's going to run himself into the ground and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, oh my God, like people also don't realize, like, if you actually want to get leaner, you have to deal with some hunger and like negative things.
Oh yeah, no kidding. Well, especially really, yeah. I mean, yeah, we've kind of that's not talked about enough. It's just that, it's just your body will fight you every step of the way. And if you, whenever someone says, "Oh, this is the greatest diet, I'm never hungry," in my mind, I'm always like, okay, you're either not losing any fucking fat or you're coked out of your head. So
put the Coke and Adderall down.
It's the best diet, man. I was never hungry. Like, yeah, because it wasn't fucking working. That's why you're never hungry.
It's so true. And it's like the pendulum has swung so hard where it was like, this used to be the norm. You suffer, you diet, that's how you get lean. And then it was, well, everyone's not eating enough. They're metabolically damaged. Their metabolism's fucked up. They're fucked for life. And then it's now still part of that. But like Luke and I talk about how when he did my photo shoot, like I was not very public about the calories I was on because people would have lost their mind because you go really, really low, but it's not really, really low for 3 years. It's like 3 weeks.
I know.
But that's the difference. And people don't realize, like, to get to a certain level of leanness, you have to sacrifice. You can't eat crap that you think other people are eating. And like, there is that level of having to suffer and actually feel like you're working to get leaner.
Yeah, totally. And it's funny. And that's why it's always good. It's good that you have someone else doing your numbers. I know whenever I diet myself, I'm always like, fuck, I should have dropped my calories way earlier because, it's never ceases to amaze me how low sometimes you have to go. Just, it doesn't make sense. Like somebody my size, I should be eating way more. Well, I'm me, this is just how it is,
Yeah. And 3 weeks into it, if you all of a sudden feel tired, it's not time for a refeed.
No. Yeah, I know. Well, that's a whole other thing. Yeah. My thing is refeeds, they're going to happen, they're going to happen. So don't start planning them because they're probably going to happen anyway.
Have you ever hired somebody to do your programming or nutrition?
Oh yeah. I always get, never for like a long block.
Yeah.
But I've hired Luke to give me plans, they're very good. How else am I going to learn?
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah. And, but no, I haven't worked with someone for a really long time, like for an extended, like the time in a while. I'd like to do that. My thing is I just can't commit to it because I'm doing so many other plans for other people that I just tend to just not do my own. I don't commit to my own as well as I should.
So you're a bad client is what you're saying.
I'm a good client because I'm always like, well, fuck, I'm sorry, I'm not doing it right now. I'm just, I don't lie and blame them. So I'm just a shitty client. I'm not like a terror, I'm not like yeah.
Ali-Gilbert.com. You could apply to work with me and I'll put you in your place.
Yeah, I know.
And then I'll fire you. I remember Luke told me, like, when I was in Texas, he was so angry that I was there without him. He's like, if you don't put on 2 kilos before you leave, you're fired. And because I was like, dude, I can't go to all these food places you're telling me to go to because it's just impossible. And then he's like, go here, go here, go here, go here. And I'm trying to eat my way through freaking Texas. I'm like, I do everything else you tell me. Get off my back.
Oh, that is a rough state to be in if you're coming off of a diet. Oh my God, I would gain. I'm
glad that I was not dieting at that time because I ate a whole box of donuts and I was like, this is awesome. And the only reason I ate the whole box of donuts because it was next door to this place that Luke told me to go. And I physically went there instead of Uber Eats so I could take photos for him and be a nice person because that's who I am. And then it led me to donuts.
Yeah,
but it's easy. But I didn't post it and say like every day diet on this.
That's good. I'm glad you didn't.
No, but still it's fun. Like, and I'm glad that you actually acknowledge that it's also a way to learn. Hiring other coaches, I think it's one of the best ways to learn because going through it yourself. I mean,
oh yeah. Like, and no, I should add, I hire other coaches all the time, just like an hour of their time. I do that a lot.
Me too.
That way I don't have to commit to somebody and let them down. So, but no, I agree. That's how you learn and see other perspectives. And it's just also everyone's really, really cool. I find the coaching community, most people are really good and help each other out. And that's how you get better at it. Yeah,
of course. I mean, we can gripe about some of the social media issues, but all in all, we're all in it together. For the most part, we like each other. So we got that going for us.
Yeah. And it's just, and everyone's getting really good. Like, God, like there's a lot of pressure to keep getting better at this job. So
there is. And I feel like that, that elderly person that looks at TikTok, like cross-eyed, I'm like, some of these things, I'm like, I don't know if I could ever grasp how to do reels or like certain things. I feel like that curmudgeon.
Yeah. Well, I'm with you there. I mean, I tell myself because I'm busy, I don't need, I don't really need clients right now. That's why I'm like, I don't need to learn that stuff. I'll just focus on learning better coaching. But no, can't have one without the other. So.
And so lastly, part of like what we're going to do at Silverback is a practical time, take people through a workout in an actual gym. And part of that, I wanted you to go over some of like your hit list of quote, old man exercises, like regressions from things that hurt.
Oh yeah. Well, that'll be easy. I probably, it's almost embarrassing. Probably 90% of, especially guys, all have the same thing. All have shoulder, some type of degree of impingement, and then you make the modifications, and them all. I mean, maybe your listeners, but it's like, nothing behind the neck, and using neutral grips and stuff. And then there's always anomalies. There's people who can do fine, like lots of overhead work, but they can't horizontal push, and they have to kind of tweak that. And but it's always modifications around shoulder, elbow, lower back, it's
everything. We'll have to set up an ice bath too right after. It is going to be the day after the bourbon tasting and dinner, so probably some people are going to be a little wrecked.
Yeah, myself probably one of them. But
What are a few of your favorites though that you perceive that we'll go over?
Like old man modifications.
Yeah.
It's not really modification. Well, there's the obvious things like that, like just when something hurts, do this, do that. But most of my things is stuff like getting more out of the least, like just doing less junk volume. Ways to like just different ways to get more out of a set, be it's like whether it's rest pause or drop sets or what have you. It's more kind of like bigger picture stuff, like just in the way of the programming. Mm-hmm. I try not to, I'm very chintzy with my volume at times. And Although that's hard to convey with online coaching, because then you got to step up the intensity and the mental engagement. That's kind of hard to do. But that's definitely where I side more, is getting more out of the least, calling audibles a lot.
Yep.
So if you walk into the gym and it's supposed to be, this kind of heavier day, I'm just saying, okay, I don't have it today, so I'm going to do this other workout that I have planned for these type of days where it's with higher reps or just less demanding exercises, not to failure, that kind of thing. Or just tasting a different target. Sometimes it can all be about loading. Maybe it has to be about just getting a great pump.
Yes. And actually learning how to groove like a tempo. And I think, like you said, intensity, so hard to train like over the internet. If we can go over that, like you can only describe, like, listen, I want you to feel like your balls are going to drop through the floor and that your muscles are going to light on fire. Like that only really gets across to so many people, but when they feel it, it's a whole different story.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it's hard to do that. It's shit. I train by myself and it's hard to get there. You have to be really know where you got to be. And, and at the same time, you don't have it today, then to have something else that you can do that's productive, and not just like go fuck around, but like just have something, okay, I'll do this workout and, it has its own targets. So if I hit that, I'm still going in the big picture in the right direction.
Exactly. And like you said, audibles, even what is a goblet squat or what is a squat to a box, or the differences. I think a lot of guys too didn't learn, how do you grip the bar in a deadlift? How do you engage your lats? Like, how do you make that look good? So stuff like that, I want guys to be able to experience too, because we talk a lot about women walking through a gym being lost, but I think a lot of guys do as well, but they just don't talk about it.
Yeah.
And you see that with online training, when they film videos, it's like, oh, okay, so I made the assumption that somebody had actually been through this exercise and maybe they hadn't. And there's a little bit more teaching involved.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I know you said you don't want any more clients, but if people want to apply to be on your wait list, where's the best place to talk to you?
Well, if you want to email me, no, that's not the way to do it. No, if you want to find me, sorry, I'm great at this. It's bryankrahn.com. So it's BRYANKRAHN.com.
Awesome.
And, you can get me through there.
Thank you,
or on
Bryan.
social media, Instagram, same name.
And Twitter, you've got like amazing tweets that are hilarious.
Yeah. Thank you. So at least you think so.
Still modest. Go follow him. He posts a lot of his Twitter posts on Instagram. So if you follow him,
that saves time.
It does. And it's very entertaining.